So, look, from a UAE perspective, we spoke a lot about reason why Dubai works for the Middle East. But you can see from a connectivity perspective, it's actually one of the most connected locations in the world. With DHL run a global index for connectivity, and it always features in the top 10. That's both from the seaports, connectivity in, and also the airports as well. And you would have heard earlier on the sort of connectivity into sort of 60 to 70% of the world's population in less than 6 to 8 hours. So Dubai, we're now seeing, is being scaled up as a global e-commerce hub. And you can see their connectivity into the Middle East, typically 1 to 2 days. If we get into North Africa, it could be up to 2 to 3. If we're going into Europe, depending if we're doing pick to flight times, you can get back in there, pushing it to sort of some of the metros in the UK. But typically it's a 2-day and then going back into Asia. But one of the really exciting areas is sort of connectivity back into Africa, which is a huge opportunity. So again, as what we're seeing now is a lot of untapped opportunity into Southeast Asia, into Africa, and obviously home market in Middle East. And this is really backed up. You can see we've got some amazing airlines in the region, real powerhouses, our home carriers, which is Emirates for Dubai and Etihad for Abu Dhabi, and then Qatar as well. But just to give you a bit of a flavor for DHL presence in the region, typically our market share is around 55% upwards in each of these countries. We've been in the region for close to 50 years. We run a full aviation network, so it's door-to-door managed by DHL. So we are delivering your promise to the customer, and it's a DHL person at the other end. But just to talk you through how that would look, first miles managed by DHL, moves on a DHL aircraft, cleared in-house customs police, recovered from a DHL aircraft, typically out with DHL delivery courier. So not only are you getting speed, but you're getting consistency as well. And that's very, very important, especially around peak periods like now, as we're coming up to Eid, which is a very important time for e-commerce. And then you heard from Mosen earlier on, so we sort of spoke really about easy to buy, and that comes in twofold really for me. There's a lot being supported around the policies here, so it's not just about the infrastructure, the ease, the cost of doing business, which are all there, but it's really about the efforts being made by the government, not only to ensure you've got great connectivity and speed to the consumer, and ease of doing business, but the policies and stuff have been relaxed. So they're really being designed around facilitating trade, and obviously supporting online growth as well. And just I mentioned there that Jebel Ali is really about the sort of seaport. That was traditional B2B retail free zone that a lot of people are familiar with. But we're now seeing that the government here investing very heavily into free zones. And obviously Easy Dubai is a great example of that. And just to add, DHL's got a location there, and we've outgrown that in the last 2 years. So it gives you a bit of an idea of how well the Dubai's doing against its plan. If we go to the next slide, if that's okay.
Sure, Ben. And just to slow down for 1 second for people. So again, the idea of a free trade zone, you're placing your inventory closer to the consumer, but you're not paying taxes until it's pulled out upon purchased by the local consumer. Accurate?
Yeah, 100%. So I was going to cover it just on the blockchain slide, but it's a good point. I'll talk about it quickly now before I transition across. But yeah, it's exactly that. So the benefit as a forward stocking location, let's say as a merchant in the US, is you can place your stock, for example, in Dubai, and not pay that VAT and duty, so it doesn't really burn your cash flow. It allows you then to be able to sell through multiple sales channels, and be able to seamlessly using the blockchain solution I'll talk about a little bit later, ship directly either offline or online to your end consumer. So it's a very great and simple solution, very easy to set up here as well. Cool. So yeah, thanks, Josh. I'm not going to spend a lot of time around this, but really what I want to emphasize here is there's a huge focus from the local government here to really facilitate and support online trade. So there's a body called Dubai SME, and they've set up a number of incubators really to support local businesses to grow and get the know-how and connections around e-commerce. The local Dubai Chamber of Commerce here is doing a wonderful job. They started to create a very big global footprint, and they spend a lot of time really working with local merchants and international businesses to be able to mobilize and set up here. in the UA. You heard from Noon already, but that's a very good incubator for global merchants who really want to test the market, really want to get familiar in the Middle East, along with Amazon. So it gives you a bit of an idea. You've got two big powerhouses in the region, so it gives you a bit of a flavor how exciting this region is and the opportunity that's available. Just want to sort of summarize a little bit, if you're not familiar with DHL, really what our value proposition is. So if you're looking to come into this region, DHL can support you. As I spoke about earlier, we can deliver into this region in 3 days, seamless, door-to-door, managed by DHL. That really talks to our brand. The end consumer here is aware of DHL. It builds a lot of confidence and obviously helps with conversion. We utilize our own network wherever we can. With the impact of COVID, we took more and more flights back in. So we've invested very, very heavily into new aircraft, along with being a lot more sustainable. So we've invested very heavily into sustainable aviation fuel. Very proud to say that the UAE is one of the 10 selected countries globally. So not only if you move to the UAE, you're actually moving and shipping in a more sustainable way and be able to offer an in-setting solution to your customer, which pretty much means they can choose to use sustainable aviation fuel along with our offsetting solution. So in the event that you are shipping with DHL, we can offset those emissions as well. Very easy to do business. So IT integrations are there. So for example, if you're on one of the major platforms like a WooCommerce or Shopify, we can get you integrated up and running in 45 minutes. Also through that integration, that allows you to be able to receive orders directly from marketplaces like Amazon, Noon, and eBay, and so on and so forth. So we can actually draw down to a central location to create all your shipping documents. That doesn't manage your inventory, to be clear, but it does allow you to ship. So you can receive that order and we can mobilize that API within a couple of seconds. The other thing I'll just talk about really is about, sorry, Josh, please.
No, go for it. I got a question, but go.
No, far away, please.
Well, actually, more of a clarification, for people who are listening here and you're hearing the word DHL, in your mind, you're thinking logistics, you're thinking fulfillment, you're thinking all the things that you think of for DHL. But another aspect of this is when you're shipping into a new region on your website with a checkout, you're going to be charging those duties and taxes, right? You need somebody to tell you how much they should be charging. That needs to take an infrastructure behind it. And then you need to integrate that awareness into the point of checkout so the consumer has a better experience. Could you talk about not just what you're doing on the back end, but how does it manifest itself on the people who are listening on their website for those consumers?
Yeah, sure. Great question. I'll answer that in twofold. First, really from a people aspect, and then second from a technical. So really about people, really our sort of core focus, if you like, DHL, which has always been in our DNA, is about global trade. So we spend a lot of time with merchants. Exactly what you're doing today is to be able to help merchants grow into new countries. And really what we do through our experience and using analytics, we really help them try to convert traffic, and that means frictionless conversion. So, and great experience for the consumer. And one of those areas is as they grow into new markets, we can use technology like our landed cost solution. And that allows the merchant to be able to provide the end consumer the exact cost of what they're going to pay. When I say the exact cost, it's an estimate, but it's a very, very precise estimate. So that will give them, depend on the shipping policy, the price, they will know if it's above and below that basket value if they're going to pay shipping. It will also allow them to communicate the taxes and duty ahead of time. So effectively the consumer can pay on checkout, which allows us then to be able to deliver that order directly to the consumer without any surprises on the doorstep. And obviously that creates a very nice experience, and especially when it's cross-border and the consumer's buying from you for the first time, you want them to come back and repeat buy, and you spend a lot of money to acquire that customer. It's a very, very nice way to attract the customer to come back to you in the future. So we have those type of technologies backed up with, as I mentioned, different analytical tools, and we will consult with the customer, use our knowledge about the de minimis values, the clearance processes in those countries, tied in with these type of solutions. So yeah, good question, Josh. Thanks for raising that.
Yeah.
Hopefully I answered it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, just a couple other things just really touch on is around customs. So I've got a few slides on this, but what I would say in the GCC in particular, which is the Gulf region, the customs processes are actually very, very good and very, very easy to follow. And what I mean by that is typically the clearance process, the de minimis values are fairly high, and I'll speak about that, and they're very consistent. So you typically know the VAT, what you're going to pay on checkout, and more importantly, the duty. So even though it's based on the HS code, around 95% of the products will pretty much be the same percentage. So it means that the business rules that you can put on checkout are very consistent and very easy to follow. And again, DHL manage customs in most countries wherever we can in-house. So that gives us a lot of leverage managing the end-to-end delivery of the order successfully. So just really going to touch on this, just to wrap everything up we spoke about and really why Dubai and the policies. So we've invested as DHL very heavily into a blockchain technology. It's the first of its kind globally as a customs clearance process. We sit on the board with Dubai Customs. This technology is now becoming more mainstream. We're very pleased to be able to communicate. We've been operating with this as a phase 1 trial phase for the last 3 years. And in simple terms, what it allows the merchant to do, as Josh quite rightly said earlier, is be able to keep inventory in the free zone without paying declaration fees up to a value of around 30,000 dirhams, which is approximately about $8,000. That number is under discussion at the moment, but just to give you a bit of a flavor for goods coming in, if you have a local e-commerce license. And it means you don't have to pay VAT and duty whilst your product is in the free zone, and allows you to seamlessly ship cross-border instantly on a transactional level. So this ties in very nicely with your site. So as the merchant goes browsing and purchases, we can then basically coordinate that order, the shipping reference number, and the airway bill number and the number of items, so we can actually see against the order which items have been delivered and if there's any items coming back. So it's very, very easy and very nice for the merchant. And this, we believe, will really facilitate trade and really position Dubai as a very good place for merchants to set up business. So we're really excited for that to go live in phase 2, which we're led to believe will be in the next few months.
All that to say, again, patching a few things you said earlier to now, in 45 minutes, you can have a website be able to say yes to global, having an integration, in particular to Middle East, with DHL e-commerce, so that you can figure out how much duty and tax you should charge, do it all on the checkout, and ship it. If it's under the de minimis, which is around $250 or whatever per item, you can actually start selling today.
Yeah, 100%. Just a slight clarification. So the DHL e-commerce DEC, you can get up and run in 45 minutes on the major platforms. The landed cost, it needs to be what we call full integration. It sounds complicated. It's not. Typically, it just means that the pre-built plugins, we're not able to offer them combined at this stage, but we will in the future. But yeah, Great. You're right.
If you have
get
questions,
up and run and ship quickly.
Yeah, I have questions. Obviously, ping me, ping Ben. But we're going to go into a couple of really cool things that Ben has around each country. So I'm going to light it up for you.
All right, perfect. So look, Saudi really is the powerhouse within the region. It's a huge country, over 30 million population, very young generation of people there, very, very well connected. You've probably read about some of the investments happen there. Some of the projects are unbelievable, what they're building there and the future cities that we'll see. But typically you can see that there's a turnover around $8 billion for e-commerce. It's expected around 14% e-commerce growth. And typically the average shopper will spend about $500. Now, when you start breaking that down onto a category level, depending on which categories you're selling, if you look at luxury, it does particularly well. And there's some very high ticket items as well. If I look at most of the big global luxury fashion brands, they do very, very well selling into Saudi or having an offline presence in Saudi as well. So very good market, socially very well connected. You'll see with all the countries in GCC, Facebook tends to be the social platform that people like to enjoy. And you can see there at 71%. But interestingly, TikTok is taken off very, very well in this region. You'll see the UAE and Saudi have over 60%. So a lot of opportunity to engage in a young generation using these platforms. So good way to acquire new customers. And just to really touch on the just the clearance piece there, if you don't mind. The de minimis there is 1,000 Saudi riyals, which is approximate $266. So depending on your category, it's quite nice. You can obviously ship to the end consumer and not pay taxes. VAT is 15%, which you can collect on checkout. So again, very, very easy to do business. Just a point to note, if the order is above that value, we do need to get a copy of the consumer's ID. But typically, because we're moving so much volume, just to give you an idea, we will fly 4 flights a day into Saudi from the UAE, 2 into Riyadh, 2 into Jeddah, which are the 2 major provinces. So you can give you a bit of an idea of how many orders are moving in from the UAE, from around the world into UAE and Bahrain and connecting in. And typically we'll have those IDs already on record, tagged against a mobile number. But just to give you a bit of an idea what's required.
Great. Before we move on from there, Ben, just so people understand, when you land in country and you say, well, why am I here in Dubai? Why not Saudi? If you've ever asked that question, I've asked the question. Saudi is the place for consumers. If you want to go, obviously they all have consumers, but Saudi is the big powerhouse in terms of consumers. In terms of ecosystem, and tell me if this is accurate, a lot of people say, well, you want to be in Dubai, but you want to sell into the Saudi consumer.
Yeah, exactly. For a number of reasons, connectivity, easy doing business, the way the trade zones are set up as well. So yeah, the end consumer is in Saudi, but really from a connectivity perspective, everything leads to Dubai.
Has there been a solution also for duty drawback? And I'll explain what that is real quick for those of you who have no idea what that is. When you sell a product, and this is a layman's term, but when you sell a product into a consumer in Saudi from Dubai, let's say, or the US, and you charge duties and taxes, and then of course that consumer, if they return the product, how do they get the duties and taxes that they paid back? And more importantly, then eventually, how do you get that back if you paid it yourselves up front?
Yeah, definitely. I think really just to summarize really why Dubai, and not just really about the local opportunity within the Middle East and North Africa. But you've heard earlier on today, if you look at from let's say a population perspective now, especially when you consider a lot of manufacturing happening in the East and then obviously going West, Dubai is in a very good position as a forward stocking location, especially with the free zones like Easy Dubai. So what we're now seeing is merchants not only trying to gain some of that market share in the region and find new opportunities to grow, but there's a huge opportunity going, as I mentioned, into Southeast Asia, going into Africa. So if you think about the populations available there, it's huge, and Dubai is in the center of the planet. So I think we're in a very, very good position to be able to capture that opportunity, especially with the policies, infrastructure, and the connectivity I spoke about. So for anyone who's really sort of considering, setting up in Dubai as a first phase 1 option, yes, you've got the Middle East, but the reality is my message would be, if you're able to sell the products and collect that money, we can get you to anywhere in the world within, a few days from here. I know we're talking about the Middle East, but just to give everyone a bit of an idea,
yeah, sure.
There's a lot of opportunity, very, very close to Dubai as well. So thanks, Josh.
Ben, thanks so much. We do have a question. I don't know if you or anybody has an answer to this. Are there a lot of ag sales, particularly vanilla cocoa and other products like these? Are we seeing an increase in that sector?
Yeah, sure. So just to clarify, what was the products?
Well, vanilla cocoa.
Vanilla cocoa. Yeah, okay.
Was a specific question, but any of those category products would be interesting.
Yeah, strangely, funny enough, we're dealing with a marketplace who's connecting sellers out of the US who pretty much have an appetite to grow into the region, but just don't know how to do it. And we're seeing it in particular around this space, supplements, sort of healthcare. We're seeing a big growth in this region. Well-being is very, very important to people here. Health, food supplements, products, things like that as well. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of growth in that area actually.
Great. And if you don't know, you want to go check out SellScreen, that data, that platform. I'm sure that they could. You can look at what's selling, what's not. Of course, you can search directly on Noon and Amazon and search for those products in the Middle East. I always think people overlook that. They're like, how do I find out the information? The marketplace already has all the stuff that's selling. And of course, the back end scrapers like SellScreen can tell you if they're really selling it. Ben, real quick, if you're going to be, we got more. Yes, vanilla, cocoa, and coffee have products. Thank you. Yeah. All right, great. We've got some people already answering. So, for regulatory issues, we were talking about this earlier. Will DHL help if we say, all right, I've got a certain product that's somewhat regulated, if it's a nutritionals or beauty? Will they help you figure out whether it's compliant? Do you have to comply if you're selling direct to the consumer and you're not doing wholesale importation?
Yeah, sure. Good question. So if you want to land product here and you want to be able to sell, then you will have to get those products registered in Dubai. It's pretty easy to do. DHL don't do it, but we have partners who can help with that for sure. So happy to take that on, and everyone's interested in doing that. If it's a direct to consumer, depends obviously on the quantities and nature of the product, but as a general rule, no. So it's acceptable quantities, and the importer record, the IOR, is the final consignee. So the consumer, then in most cases, then the answer is no. But if there's any specific food-related items, maybe medical-related things like that, then there may be a requirement for local approval.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Ben. We're going to let you go. It's so late there, and we really appreciate it. Ben from DHL.
Thanks for having us on. Take care.
Take care.